Hi students! In this video, you will learn about the different types of microscope. At the end of this video, you should be able to identify the different types of microscope. Any object, either living or non-living organisms, that cannot be seen by our naked eye is called microscopic object. Examples of this are bacteria, fungi, cell, atom, and biomolecule. Let's go back first to the past and trace the history of how the microscope started. The ancient civilization has been using lenses for multiple applications like magnification of objects. During 13th century, lenses have been widely used for vision improvement. Have you ever wondered how the microscope was developed? The first microscope was invented by Zacharias Janssen and his father Hans. Janssen's microscope consists of 3 draw tubes with lenses inserted into the ends of the flank tubes. This was the very advanced magnifying tool designed for this time period. The Janssen microscope was capable of magnifying images approximately 3 times when fully closed and up to 10 times when extended to the maximum. After Zacharias Janssen was Anton van Leeuwenhoek. He devoted much of his time to his hobby of grinding lenses and using them to study tiny objects, and later on made his own version of microscope consisting of a single high-quality lens of very short focal length. His invention of microscope led him to be considered the father of microscopy and founder of the cell theory. During 1609, the first perfected microscope was developed by an Italian astronomer named Galileo Galilei. His invention of microscope led him to become the first person to observe bacteria, fungi, and other life in a drop of pond water. On the other hand, Robert Hooke, a famous British scientist, was heavily involved with the overall design of optical characteristic of one of the most elegant microscope built during 1600. His microscope shared several common features with the telescope of that period. Because of this, he was the first known person to observe cells under the microscope. As the years passed by, a different microscope was made and brought many breakthroughs in the field of science. Now, these are some of the types of microscope with different uses. First on the list, the compound microscope. It is the most common type of microscope which is commonly used in the lab experiments. This type of microscope uses 2 lenses to magnify the specimen. The light source can either be from sunlight or an electric bulb. A compound microscope can be a monocular, where the user views the specimen's image using one eye, or binocular, where the user views the specimen with 2 eyes. The compound microscope is classified into 2, namely the light compound and electric compound microscope. A light compound microscope uses a mirror to collect and direct sunlight to illuminate the specimen. It typically provides magnification in the range of 40 times to 100 times. On the other hand, the electric compound microscope uses an electric bulb as light source. 2-dimensional image of the specimen can be examined using this microscope. This is an image of a specimen observed using a compound microscope. Another type of microscope is the dissection microscope. This type of microscope can view three-dimensional objects and other larger specimens. It has a maximum magnification of 100 times. It can also magnify the specimen 4 times of the original size of the specimen. The dissection microscope is essential for studying an object's external features, or it can also examine structures of a specimen that cannot be easily mounted on a slide. This is a sample image of a specimen observed using a dissection microscope. Another type is the phase contrasting microscope. This type of microscope can change the position of the light as it passes through the transparent specimen. The change in light's position causes a change in the brightness of the formed image. This microscope is essential when observing live, transparent, and organisms or cells visible only in minutes. One of the advantages of phase contrasting microscope is it does not require staining of the specimen before viewing. This is an image of a sample specimen observed under phase contrasting microscope. Next type of microscope is the fluorescence microscope. A fluorescence microscope uses fluorescence dye to form the magnified image. This microscope is essential for studying the reflection and absorption properties of organic and inorganic substances present inside a microscopic organism. The usability of this microscope depends on the chemical reaction between the dye and the specimen. This is an image of a sample specimen observed under fluorescence microscope. Another type of microscope is the confocal microscope. Confocal microscope uses laser instead of natural light. The laser allows more details in the image of specimen. This microscope is essential in material science when studying the structure and properties of a material. This is an image of a sample specimen observed under confocal microscope. Last but not the least is the electron microscope. Electron microscope uses beam of electrons to illuminate the specimen. It can also provide a magnification up to 1000 times. The electron microscope is classified into two, namely the transmission and scanning electron microscope. The transmission microscope transmits a beam of an electron to form an image of the specimen through the sample, and it is essential for studying and examining very thin sections of samples and the inner structure of cells. This is an image of a sample specimen observed under transmission electron microscope. On the other hand, the scanning electron microscope can produce three-dimensional images by scanning the sample surface using electron beams, and it is essential to determine the surface structure of small compound particles. This is an image of a sample specimen observed under scanning electron microscope. Through these different microscopes, discoveries were made became the milestone of what we are today. I hope you learned a lot today. For more videos, don't forget to subscribe on my YouTube channel. Thank you and have a day full of blast.